What's up, everybody? We are here today to talk about North American Power Rankings. You could call it North American predictions for what's going to happen in this split. It's probably a better name for it. Maybe not Power Rankings. Power Rankings has some weird weight on it. But either way, we'll call it that for now for this video. But we're going to predict what the top 10 teams are in North America for Split 1 and see how it all fares. Who's going to go to the major, who's not. We're all going to find out right now. You don't even have to watch these next 3 qualifiers. It doesn't matter because you'll find out right now. So let's get right into it. Let's go over here. Got a nice little slide thing. It's not pretty, but hey, you know, I don't think you come here for the pretty graphics. You come here for the pretty face right here. All right, let's get into it. Let's just get through this list. Let's start at number 10. Obviously, North America, I feel like there's a couple tiers involved here that we'll talk about. I'm going to call this tier 3. And we'll talk about these next 2 picks, 9 and 10. I'm going to put into the tier 3 category where I think it's an outside shot that they make it to the major. Like, I'd be more shocked than not, I guess you would say. So we're going to start with number 10, NRG. Not really big on energy this year. Obviously, energy last year wasn't that great. They've had some roster shakeups towards the end here to try and find their roster. They did settle on Toasty. Gen.G, Mist, and Toasty. And we'll see how it all plays out. Mist obviously has a lot of question marks from last year with phase, with playtime, and all that. But if you're going to be inspired to play, it's going to be with Gen.G. Like, that's just how it is. But at the same time, Gen.G, a lot of questions around him. A lot of questions around his team. And how they just did not perform last year, pretty much at all. And then Toasty coming in, kind of like a new face, a fresh face. Like, he's been around for a bit, but, you know, a relatively new face in terms of the upper echelon of North America. So we'll see how it all fares. I don't expect it to go too incredibly well, so I'm going to put them at number 10. Moving on, next team, we got TSM. Where are they at over here? I had him here a second ago. There we go. So we got Creams, Hockey, and Wavy. And these guys are the new faces, right? The new kids on the block that are making some waves. As Hey Bro before, they're just making waves throughout the Bandits on Wheels tournaments, the draws a bit as well. Getting some upsets that you don't expect. So they're a team that's on the rise. But when it matters most, when we're in the RLCS, will they prevail? That's the main question here. I think they have the skill to move up, but there's so many teams above them, and it's going to be very difficult to outclass them. If they have, you know, a really good qualifier and wind up winning an entire regional, so I want to call it qualifiers because that's what it's named, but I just can't. So we're going to call it a regional. But, like, if they make a big run in a regional, make a grand finals or something, then they could, like, pop up this list. But I expect them to be in that 2-2 round of Swiss almost every single time, right? And we'll see if they make it or don't. But for now, I'm going to have them in my tier 3 list of teams. And, yeah, so we got TSM there. Next up, M80. Joris Nass and AJ. I love AJ. I'm not sold on Jorius lately, and then Nass is kind of that newcomer as well, which obviously has tons of skill, tons of mechanical ability. And here's where I'm getting into the tier 2 teams, and I think there's a very small gap between 8 and even 3. So just keep that in mind here as we rank these teams. But in this tier 2 range, like, a lot of mechanical skill. They have Nick as a coach who has tons of accolades and tons of accomplishments, so you would expect them to find a way to get it done. But I don't know. I'm just not feeling them, honestly. I don't know. Like, I think it's going to come down to defense first. If they play solid defense, they got a shot. We'll see how it all plays out. But for some reason, I don't know. Like, I'm just not feeling this team. And obviously, it's been a long offseason. There's been offseason tournaments. We've seen these teams play a bit. But it's a little different when you're grinding and getting ready for the RLCS. We'll see how it all plays out here. But I just got a bad feeling. I don't know why. So I'm going to put them 8. Not really the greatest expert analysis, but I'm also trying to wait and see what I see out of these teams in the RLCS, right? To see where they actually are. Next up, Luminosity. Going to put them here at number 7. Magic Bear, Riddles, and Cheese. It's kind of the same thing where, like, I'm not sold on Riddles and Magic Bear as a duo. They obviously had a better spring, but that was with AJ as well. Can they find that form again? I don't think so. I don't think they're a top 5 team or a top 4 team now for a major spot. Could they do some upsets? Yeah, very likely. Do I think... So it's weird because I think M80 probably has a higher peak, but I think consistently, I think we'll see Luminosity probably have better results, if that makes sense. Just barely, probably not by much. I don't see this team peaking and go into a grand finals, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But, it's probably on the lower end of the tier 2 teams that I would say, where we said between 3 and 8, I think is incredibly close. But I think there's flaws in all these teams, but I think these guys would be a little bit more on the lower end of that side. Next up, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Dignitas. Dig is a weird team, man. They've looked great in their last 2 tournaments. The last 2 Bandits on Wheels, they have won. Evo, Arsenal, and Gyro. And on paper, this team doesn't seem that good, right? It just doesn't. But everything's clicking right now. I wonder if that's going to continue in the ROSS. I don't think they make major. I think they fall back down to earth a little bit. They're a weird team because I think before those 2 Bandits on Wheels tournaments, I would have had them probably at 8th. Now, obviously, I think a lot of people are going to have them much, much higher, probably even upwards of 3 or 4. But I, for some reason, don't have faith. I'm sorry, Dignitas. I just don't. I don't have faith. I don't think they're going to win, or I don't think they're going to place top 4. But again, I think at this point, now it's even closer. Between 3 and 6, super, super close. It's really going to come down to those quarterfinal matchups in those qualifiers. So, see how it all plays out. But for now, I'm saying no to Dignitas. Next up, I'm trying to see at my list. We got OG, Red Bull OG. These guys obviously had a questionable qualifier. Barely made it out. But so much experience on the team. Nolly, JNaps, and Com. And Nolly and JNaps, I think, are still tier 1 category of players. I think Com is probably like a tier 2. No offense, Com. But Com is a great leader at the same time and knows how to lead a team. So I expect them, with their experience, to be able to find a way to be in the mix for that major. I think they just barely miss out. And again, it really is going to come down to, we got 3 qualifiers. These quarterfinals are going to matter so much. They are going to matter so incredibly much. So it's going to come down to, like, if you get a good side of the bracket, you have to take advantage of it. You have to make that grand finals push, because that's going to be the difference between if you make it or you don't. Because if like a Gen.G and G2 are on the same side of the bracket, you better be making that grand finals on the other side. So see how it all plays out. But again, OG, with their experience, I think the qualifier was a little bit of a wake-up call. It's actually probably not a bad thing for them to qualify that way, because at least, now they have 4 days of practice of just like, we know what we need to fix. A big wake-up call for them. So we'll see if they capitalize on that. I expect them to make it to the quarterfinals, even though they're playing Gen.G in round 1 of this upcoming Swiss. I still think they will make it to at least the top 8, and then we'll see from there. Moving on. Next team, the Draw Kings Rebellion. I'm going to put them here at number 4. Obviously, coming in with Justin. Everyone was praising him throughout the offseason that he's looking fantastic. Parth and two-piece, hard to say, were fantastic late in the year last year. They were really on the rise of, like, here's our next team, right? Here's that next North American talented team. Now to bring in a guy like Justin on that squad, it's going to make them even better. We've seen it in plenty of draws where they just go through and sweep them. So their off-season results have been pretty solid. I do think they sneak into the major, and also be kind of cool to see Justin at a major again. But it's incredibly close. Again, 3 through 6, I think you could coin flip on any of them. But I think Rebellion finds a way, and they get it done to get that number 4 spot. Number 3, Space Station. I think Space Station had a chance to really put themselves pretty distant away from 4 through 6 or 4 through 8 with the roster shuffle. And then they got Chicago. And I'm not saying Chicago's bad, but I thought maybe there was more on the table. And maybe I'm completely wrong. Sorry, Chicago. But I thought there could have been a better roster move here for Space Station to make that next leap into the top of North America. But I don't think they found that move necessarily. I could be wrong, but I think I think Kago is an excellent player. Excellent player. Just don't think it's that top 2 of North America competing against Gen.G and G2 type of player. So I'm going to put them number 3. Again, 3 through 6, 3 through 8, you can move any of these guys around. But Space Station, like LJ and Hoxer, which I didn't mention their names, were fantastic by the end of last year at the World Championship. So, see how it all plays out. But I got them number 3. So I still got them very high, but I think that the roster offseason moves, I think they could have done maybe a little bit better. But hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully Chicago comes out and just dominates everyone. So that's the hope. Moving on. Top 2. This is tier 1. We all know who the 2 are, but in what order? And for me, I have to put G2 at number 2. G2 Stride now. G2, I'm putting number 2. There's a lot of reasons for this. Obviously, we haven't seen Gen.G, which we'll get to in a bit. But I think people know I've always been a little bit down on Daniel and Beast Mode as players. I always felt like they weren't clutch enough to get wins. Like Daniel, obviously, we've seen him before. Like he'll come in. It's like he came into the scene doing very well, but then you have these weird bad kickoffs late in games out of Daniel, and just clutch moments just didn't happen. Then obviously Gamers 8 happened, and we saw them pop off, but that was mostly in 2s. So, that's not really going to help necessarily. Beast Mode at the same time, I've talked about this before, he does get quiet at times back on the V1 days. If Beast Mode wasn't popping, then V1 was just completely flat, and nothing was happening. So this team probably is the highest peak of any team here, and they could very easily be number 1. But I worry about the consistencies. They add Atomic as well, or not really add Atomic. He was on the squad first, but Atomic adds Daniel in Beast Mode. I think that's more of the consistent factor, hopefully, on this G2 squad. But I expect them to find their form. Off-season tournaments, they were just kind of, mulling about. But I expect them to find their form. When they peak, they could be world beaters. But I worry about their consistency. I could see very easily between these 3 qualifiers, 2 quarterfinal exits and a regional win. I could easily see that out of G2, but we'll put them number 2. Number 1, obviously, we got Gen.G. What do you do with the best North American team of all of last season? Yeah, the North American MVP. That's what Gen.G has done. It's very hard to put them outside of number 1. Oh, this thing broke. But number 1, we have to go Gen.G here because so much talent on this squad. They were the number 1 team in North America. Sure, Spring Split wasn't as good, but when it came down to international play, they would still find a way to be the best North American team. They swap out Nolly for First Killer, whose First Killer has always been that guy in NA, one of the best players in the world. Just his teammates sometimes around him have not been the best, and a lot of that could easily fall onto First Killer of how he picks teams. Now he moves on to a team that picked him, which we'll see how that all plays out. But I expect, if we're talking about North American MVPs, that a First Killer should be the favorite to win it, because he'll probably put up numbers no matter who he plays with, but now he's playing with Gen.G. So I expect him to be the early favorite of who will win an MVP award. But this squad is just so incredibly talented. We haven't seen them throughout the offseason. They've kind of just been taking it easy, trying to figure out what they need to do to get ready for the RLCS, the most important thing. But they were number 1 in North America last year, and they picked up the #1 player in all of North America, the MVP first killer. So how do you not put them at #1? So I would have them at #1. So there you go. That is my list. We got our top 10. Again, I'll go through the tiers. Maybe we'll add a tier. All right. I'm going to add a tier here. I'm going to go tier 4 is Gen.G and TSM. Tier 3 is M80 and Luminosity. Tier 2 is Dignitas, OG, Rebellion, and Space Station. I think any of those teams could coin flip. And then Gen.G and G2. Would I be shocked if Luminosity or M80 made the major? No. I would be more shocked if TSM or Gen.G did. But that is my list. Let me know why I am wrong in the comments below. We will do actual Swiss predictions in our next video for tomorrow before we get to the action on Friday. So thank you guys all for tuning in this past week and a half or so. We'll try and keep pumping out some RLCS content for you all. So thank you. See you next time.